All right, guys. Well, here we are. It's been a brutal 24-hour period for me. My parents put their dog to sleep, as I had talked about, in the $10 mono. It's never easy losing a pet, I had to put Bogey to sleep when I think I was like 20 years old at the time. And what was really fucked up about that is he had like nasal cancer. So like his nose was like rotting off. He could barely walk. And one day my parents were like, "Hey, we want you to go put Bogey down." Felt like I was in some old like Western movie where I had to like bring Bogey to the back of the barn and blast him with a shotgun. It wasn't that bad. I just took him to the vet and I held his paw while they injected him with the euthanization, and I watched life drain out of his eyes. I lit a cigarette immediately after. They're like, "Hey, no smoking." And I was like, "I just lost a Labrador. Fuck you." And they just kind of looked at me like it's probably the acne too. If I didn't have the kind of acne I had at the time, they probably would have respected my conviction, but the acne set it off. I just looked like a scum. I literally smoked a cigarette in the vet's office that time. And when my parents had asked me to put him to sleep, I was like, "Oh yeah, I got it for sure." And I took him back to my place and I like pretended like he was dead for like 4 months. We had like a funeral. I like read rhyming poetry. I was like, "I'm really gonna miss him." And then I'd like go home and pet him. I'd be like, "You're not dying today, buddy." Thing is he was suffering, back then. And I was really bad on drugs. So I don't think that I really understood that what I was doing was a selfish act. And finally, one day, he took a shit on the floor and he fell. His legs gave out on him. And he was covered in his own shit. His nose was being like gnawed off by cancer. And I just had to make the decision to go do it. And I did it. And I cried. That was before prison. That's back when I had a soul. I'd like go out dancing. It's like what people with souls do. They're like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" "I don't know, probably gonna dance. Celebrate the fact that there's a fire still blazing in my soul." All right, yeah, me too. When I got out of prison, there was no more of that. Completely soulless. And I say that joking, but half jokingly, because prison really made me stoic and apathetic. Not sociopathic. I still have a conscience. And I still do have empathy, but I don't get as sad about things like that as I used to. Paul's death really affected me bad. That was in more recent times, that's one of the more painful things that had happened to me. And, I kind of lied to myself the last 6-7 months, last couple years, on and off, out zigzagging out of addiction. And, I don't know. I know I had 3 years sober, and I know I'm capable of doing what I need to do, and I have kids now. It's not about me anymore. It's really frustrating, when you really want to get sober and you can't. I have 8 days off everything right now. Everything. Like nothing. Suboxone. But besides that, nothing. And I've been around plenty of drugs recently, and alcohol and partying, and I don't know. I've just come to that point where I really don't want to do that to myself anymore. I really don't want to do that to Karina. I don't want to do that to Nico. I want to be a good father. I fucked up everything in my life so much. I want to be a good dad because my dad was a good dad to me. When Brava... when I first bought Brava, it was right when Bogey was it was the period where my parents thought that Bogey was dead. I mean, it got ridiculous. I brought like fake cremation sand, like in a Ziploc bag, had like duct tape around. I'm like, yeah, these are his remains. My parents like bought it. They're like, oh my God, Bogey. But he was secretly at my house. This time, you know, Brava was a much different dog. I bought her for my mom when I was a drug dealer. You know, I think she cost me like $600 to $800. And I didn't want my mom to suffer when Bogey passed away. So I bought Brava before Bogey died, and she was female. You know, Bogey was a wild male. He literally would butt fuck every female, male dogs. I mean, he was just a straight like club kid. He had like glow stick collars. Listen to dubstep. I was like, it's whatever. I'm not judging you, man. I think he was bisexual. It was weird, but it was whatever. Brava was sweet. I always said that if she was a person, I pictured her in flannel, tight Wrangler jeans, kind of a chubby lesbian, but like a kind-hearted one, you know? The kind that like, you'd be at an Alanis Morissette concert and you'd be lip singing along to it with her. That was Brava. Just very benevolent, full of good energy. So when I'd gotten her for my mom when she was a puppy, I went away shortly thereafter, you know, for 5 years. So I missed the first 5 years of Brava's life. In a lot of ways, that was the angel that kept my mom sane while I was in prison. My mom loved that dog. My dad loved that dog. They gave her a really nice life. And as I explained on the $10 monologue, you know, I was up in San Francisco filming that LSD movie. Was having a great time up there. My dad called and he said, you know, she's got kidney disease. She's at the end. She's not eating. When they stop eating, that's when they go. I said, can you keep her alive until Sunday or Monday so I can come down and get some closure, say goodbye? He said, yeah, take your time. So I stayed up in San Francisco. You know, I stayed with Sophia, Paul's widow, which is always like bittersweet. I'd known her 10 years, but I feel like I'm being a really good friend by keeping her in my life. I feel like Paul would have wanted that. She's a great person. But then my dad just called me randomly and he's like, yep, we're putting her down. So I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye to her. We got in late last night and my mom is already suffering severe mental illness right now, but she's sobbing uncontrollably. She's in pain. Heartbreaking to see. And me being jaded, soulless, the way that I am now after all these years in prison, it's so hard for me to console her the way that I want to. You know, I keep telling her, hey, you're about to have a second grandson. You know, let's think about the positives. And I'm going to try to adopt her, you know, a dog that's a little older than a puppy, another lab, so that at least it can fill some part of the hole in her heart. But that's what kind of day I've been having. And then Karina got really sick. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on with her. She's really, really sick today, though. It's probably pregnancy stuff. I've been talking to Sinister. We're going to start the plan, as we've been saying. I'm going to get other people to upload videos, add tags, just make it more professional, you know? I just hit a real rough patch and I'm trying to rebound. So thank you as always for those of you that have stuck with me. I'm going to tell a story now. I didn't want to do another mono. Tried doing yesterday. It was like, the timing of it was just like, you know, we tried to do it a couple times with Karina in the car. And I'm just not the same when I have her with me, you know? I'm not as unfiltered, so decided to hold out. Got here last night, dealt with my mom having a freak out, and just decided, you know, to do it when I could, which is right now, do a walk, even though it's scorching hot. It's kind of an interesting story. You know, it's not a super long storyline, but it does go into some things that I haven't talked about. So let's get right to it. I'll timestamp it for the aficionados that only like the pure story. And I'm trying, you know, I'm really depressed, trying just to push through. That's one of the reasons I'm walking. Walking helps with the depression. So anyway, where we'd left off last time, it was very weird. You know, this guy, Will, who is basically looked at as like a dork, you know? He's the guy that I got in a fight with because he stole meat from Kate and her roommates. He said that his street name was Spider, whatever the fuck that means. You know, these are the kind of guys that look at being a gang member as if it's a Mortal Kombat character. It's like, yeah, you know, I have specialty moves. I can do somersaults, you know, down freeway ditches. That's my specialty street move. I'm Spider. Nice to meet you. But this guy looked like a chomo, right? And the other guy that lived there was a chomo, and I beat him up. I sucker punched him at a party. The guy, Eric, was not a lame guy. He was one of the cooler people that I came across while I was living out in Worcester. Again, when I got into heroin, everybody turned on me, which felt shitty, you know, when you're doing cocaine with all these people, ecstasy, all these party drugs, but as soon as you start injecting stuff, all of a sudden they're like giving you like AIDS donations. They're like, yeah, just take this. This is $300 for, you know, an AIDS foundation. Just whenever you catch it, it'll probably help your life. And you're like, what the fuck? People start getting really judgmental about it, you know? And I gotta say, at that age, I hate to admit it, but I really thought that being a heroin addict was cool. I really did. I don't know what I thought. I think I thought of John Travolta in Pulp Fiction, like being all gouged out in a convertible listening to surf music. I was like, that's me. I want to be that guy forever. The guy's amazing. He's got briefcases full of jewels. People are scared of him. Hangs out with some black dude that always is quoting biblical scripture and shit. That's what I want to be 5 years from now. I didn't have a lot of ambition then. But Eric, you know, he used to be a male model. He was a drug dealer, but he was a low-key one. He got girls, but it was always awkward. As we talked about, it was always like very matter-of-fact. And I'd gone into precipitated withdrawal, I think, from that punk rocker guy that I met on the street that had like the fishnet stockings. So by the time I reached out to Eric, I was in a state of complete desperation, right? I didn't know how to get back to these girls' houses. My phone wasn't charged. I was resourceless. And back then, I looked at a lot of my life as an adventure. You know, whether I was like hopping trains in Florida or like shitting my pants in natural mud baths and natural hot springs in Albuquerque. Everything that I did, and I think it's a way that I kind of justified the insanity that I was living, I looked at it as an adventure. So I had no idea what awaited me going to Eric's house. But I was absolutely shocked when Will was the guy that picked up. Because Will was the kind of guy that everybody picked on because everybody knew he was full of shit. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to train how to do my, my street specialty move down industrial pipelines. I don't know. I just feel like I could really get a lot further if I could pull that move off in particular. And he'd really say stuff like that. Maybe not verbatim, but he was a weird guy. Now, the one thing that I think I forgot to mention when we were first talking about Will is that he was a trust fund baby. I was probably 19 when the storyline takes place. And back then, social equity was more important than money. It's like I was still coming out of a high school mentality. So I kind of engaged people by how cool they were. I was like, you have a hoop earring in your left ear, backwards NYC cap. Yeah, you pretty much have pretty high social equity. I want to hang with you. That's like the kind of weird delusional thoughts I thought back then. It's not like it is now, 35 years old, where you see the most beautiful women in the world hanging out with like the lamest guys, right? And you get older and you realize that so many people are just about money, especially in LA, like where I'm living now. It's all about status, money. Everybody looks fake, like Barbie dolls. But back then, it was social equity. So I never really put it together that the reason that somebody like Eric was hanging out with Will was because Will was a trust fund baby. You got something ridiculous. You got like $15,000 a month allowance or something. I think I had heard rumors of that back when I was in Worcester, but I'd never seen it because we got in a fight. And I never wanted to talk to him again after that. So now I'm in this apartment, and Will's telling me that he's got dope, which I didn't even believe. And we're in the middle of talking about it, and Eric walks in with groceries. Now, going through precipitated withdrawal, whether that was naloxone or if it was buprenorphine or whatever the hell I had taken, it was definitely not heroin in a pill. That's what it wasn't. It felt like I had injected a stick of dynamite or something and my internal organs were like self-combusting. I felt awful. So just the mention of dope, I got a completely one-track mind. All I wanted to do was get dope off Will. Even though I thought he didn't really have it. That's just what happens when you're a junkie. You just start logic goes out the window. You're like, wow, this sounds completely made up and bullshit. I'm going to trust this guy with $100. Yeah, take the $100. Nah, meet me in a few hours. You know what? Make it 5 hours. I trust you that much. Buy an ice cream too, man. It's hot as fuck out here. So as soon as Eric gets there, I don't know. I picked up on something weird. They go in the kitchen. Like, Eric barely says anything to me. It's like he acted like he had just seen me like a day or two before, but I hadn't seen him in like a year and a half. Him and Will go in the kitchen, and Eric's putting away groceries, and they start whispering to each other. Now, as a seasoned drug addict, even at 19 years old, I was already paranoid. And one of my big pet peeves is when you're with two people that you know, and they're whispering because they don't want you to hear what they're saying. So I just got this really weird vibe from them. I couldn't put my finger on it though. I didn't know what was going on. So Will starts helping Eric put away the groceries. You'd think Eric would want to like talk to me and like catch up, like, well, how have you been? I'd been like, oh, you know, I've been homeless. I stabbed a skinhead. Someday I'm going to write a book and it's going to be the first chapter of it. Then I was homeless, eating out of dumpsters and, you know, eating crescent shaped slices of pizza crust, you know, just to survive. But besides that, just living the dream, my dude, living the dream. And of course he's monotone, so he's just like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, so I try to break the awkwardness and I'm like, hey, Eric, why do you live with Will? And they look at each other and they don't answer the fucking question. I don't even have a hypothesis at this point. Usually I'm like pretty good at cracking cases. Maybe it was the fact that I was in some heightened sense of withdrawal. But I was just picking up weird vibes. I didn't know what. And they weren't telling me much. They weren't revealing anything. So they're putting away groceries. And if you're an opiate addict, you know how this goes. It seemed like them putting away groceries, which probably in actuality took like 10 minutes. To me, it was like looking at like an hourglass with little sand granules like coming out of it. Because I was just praying that they would finish so that I would get a chance to talk to Will by myself and try to get some of this China White dope that he claimed that he had. Eric's like, yeah, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to take a shower. This is after they put the groceries away. So now I'm all excited about it, right? I know that I'm going to be able to get something off of Will. Now, I know Will has a lot of money, you know? And I knew that people had kind of used him for money. That was like kind of like the only thing that I think he was considered good for at the time, because he was just such a shitty person that would steal stuff from women and do all sorts of weird shit, pretend that he was in gangs. I remember my friend Luke, the one that we'd meet up with later on in life. God damn, my lips are chapped. Oh my God. Let me get some water. Back then, Will would always want to hang out with Luke because they were roommates. And Luke would be like, all right, Will, you can hang out, but you have to give me $100. And I hate to tell you, man, but you gotta lay in the trunk again. Now, Luke had like, I don't know, like a Honda or something, like a sedan. And Will would be like, oh, come on, man. I have to lay in the trunk again? Last time you went over speed bumps, I think intentionally, and it really hurt me. My ribs got bruised from it. Luke would be like, do you want to hang out or not? Will would be like, okay, fine. And he would actually lay in the trunk. It was incredible. So that's kind of how I knew him. So when Eric goes upstairs, I go up to Will. I'm like, hey man, can you get me well? He's like, I don't know if you heard Eric whispering to me when we were in the kitchen, but he told me not to give you anything. He said that you're an addict and that you're trying to do better. It's like, dude, I'm 19. What do you mean I'm trying to do better? I can't even drink legally. I'm way before the period of my life where I want to get better. How are you just going to tell me that you have dope and then not give me any? He's like, shh. I'll give you a bit, okay? I'll give you a bit tonight. But that's it. After that, you're cut off, man. And it was obvious. You run into this a lot with people that have been bullied, right? Especially like people in authority, whether it be a security guard, prison guard, police officer. Not all cops are bad. I just had a great interaction with police. They were very cool. About a week ago, I go back and forth because sometimes they're just so ludicrous to me, but I got to separate the good ones from the bad ones. But anyway, Will was the kind of guy where, like, you could tell that just giving him a little position of power, him having the dope over me, gave him some sort of like sardonic glee. So he takes out a ceramic plate and he's like, all right, go to the stairwell and be on lookout. If you see Eric, signal to me. I was like, all right, what am I supposed to say? Say Eagle 1. I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking say that. That sounds so obvious. Sounds like we're trying to do something bad. He's like, we are trying to do something bad. We're snorting China White fucking heroin. I'm like, whatever. I'll jump through this guy's hoops just because I want to get well. So I go stand by the stairwell. Makes up these lines on the ceramic plate. And they're tiny. Now, back when I lived in Worcester, it didn't take a lot to get high. You know, if you're considering, if you're comparing it to like a simple line of cocaine, it's probably a quarter of that and very thin, not a lot of girth. So he made this little teeny line for me. I was just so happy to be getting well, I didn't even care. I go up to do it. He's like, wait. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm gonna go stand guard at the stairwell too. If I see Eric, I'm gonna say Eagle 2. Or what about Eagle 2 has landed? He's like, dude, do you want a thermos? It's camo colored. It's like, yeah, dude, whatever. Like, this guy was so bizarre. He's like, this shit's really happening. So I go to the ceramic plate. He had like a little cut up straw as the tutor. And I do a bump. Or the little line or whatever. I taste it in the back of my throat. I get the drip. It feels like it's dope. Like it tastes like it. But I feel nothing. You know, generally when you snort heroin like that, it takes 10, 15 minutes, sometimes even less, depending on how strong it is. And you feel well, you know? I was on the tail end of precipitated withdrawal, so I was still sweating. You know, I was probably still sharding. I didn't have my weighted blanket on me to help me with the thrashing. But I didn't feel it. And he puts the sack away. He does one, and I go, well, I didn't feel that. It's like, what do you mean you didn't feel that? He's like, do you realize who I got this from? Irish refugees. This is shamrock dope, bro. I'm like, Shamrock dope? He's like, shh, Eric's coming. Eric comes down. He's like, oh, hey, Ryan. Hey, Will. Will, can I talk to you for a second? So he goes in the other room and he starts talking to him again. This is becoming this like annoying thing, you know, when you're like, I don't know. Sometimes like you get in a house, doesn't necessarily have to be a drug house, but there's this weird dynamic where they're having these like secret meetings about you. You know they're talking about you because they're like in the corner of the kitchen pointing to me. Will's like drawing me on a chalkboard. I have like some small root beer barrel sized dick. I'm like, hey, Will. He's like, what? It's just my artistic interpretation. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's up with these guys. But what I do know is that the line of China White that I supposedly snorted didn't do much for me. You know, I didn't feel anything. And Will's not going to give me another one until the morning. Now, you would think the fact that I hadn't seen Eric for a year and a half, however long it would have been, that he'd want to have a conversation with me. You know, he gave me a charger for my phone. So I already knew that the situation, like at this particular house, was something that I didn't really want to be part of. Weird, secretive conversations, a weird vibe that I couldn't really put my finger on. And Will on a power trip like he's a rent-a-cop at a fucking mall, giving me bunk dope. Now I have my phone again, and I start making my calls. You know, one thing that's really interesting when you're an addict is that you think you're friends with everybody, right? Especially if you're a heroin addict, because you're riding this opiate bliss, this wave, where you think that the whole world loves you. And in reality, most people despise you. There's great disdain for the junkie. Junkies stink, they steal, they fart, they burp sulfur. If you're a heroin addict, you know what I'm talking about. You burp shit that smells like sulfur gas. I know right away when there's a junkie. Like, I'll see like some like old school Mexican mafia looking dude at the DMV, and he's like covered in sweat, and he'll burp, and I'll be like, sulfur, and I'll look at Karina, I'll be like, he's dope sick. And she has been through this with me for so long now that she can pick up on these signs as well. I can't get a hold of anybody. And even the few people that I do connect with by phone, it's like a couple girls that I knew from back then, made up some like lame excuses why they couldn't hang out with me. They're like, yeah, you know, tomorrow I'm going to get these special leather gloves fitted. It's going to take like 10 to 15 hours. Oh no, I do it every season. Sorry, can't connect with you this trip. Completely random stuff like that. So it became clear to me that I didn't really have any other options. Now, I end up calling Kelly and Becky, the girls that I had originally come out there for to celebrate 4th of July with. Nothing. Straight to voicemail. I know and the voicemail box is full. So who knows what had happened with that? I mean, fact of the matter is I got jerking off at their apartment building, so it's like, I don't even know. Probably, because I'm one of those people that just doesn't care that much. Like, I'll be like, yeah, I did that, so what? It felt fucking amazing. I would do it again. Anytime I get, you know what? In fact, anytime I get an elevator shaft past this point, I'm jerking off, even if I'm not dope sick. What about that, Becky? Yeah, bet you didn't expect that kind of answer. Let's move in together. Oh, you don't want to? Predictable. So I was kind of just stuck out there, right? This weird situation. And I didn't know if maybe I had taken this naloxone or buprenorphine, whatever it was, if it was blocking this very nominal amount of China white line that Will had given me. Whatever the case was, it was frustrating. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of, like, I don't know. I was going to do some sexual metaphor, but I'm trying to steer away from that. I'm trying to clean up my image after the latest public relations nightmare that ensued. I guess I came up with the plan that night just to leave this place, right? Now, the way that this particular apartment was set up, there was a kitchen downstairs, there was a living room, and there was a bedroom. It was like a third bedroom. And then upstairs, there was 2 bedrooms parallel. And Will lived in one room, Eric lived in the other. Eric was never a man of great conversation when I knew him when I lived in Worcester. But he was even weirder now. And the fact that he was with this guy, Will, too, just really tripped me out. I couldn't figure it out. It was whatever. I don't feel good. And I tell Eric straight up, you know? Even though Will had been, like, so secretive about the whole thing and not wanting me to tell him, like, what the situation was, I didn't care. You know, I felt like shit and I was trying to seek any relief that I could. So I told Eric that I was strung out. I was like, Eric, we need to talk. You know, he's all monotoned. He's like, yeah. What is it that you'd like to talk about? I'm like, Eric, I'm strung out. Somebody sold me some weird thing. Made me even sicker. I don't know what it was. Said it was heroin and a pill. Some horse cop yelled at me. And now I'm here, feeling like complete shit. And I gotta be honest. It's gonna be a very rough night unless I can get a little more comfortable. Whether that me be getting well, maybe you have some benzos, maybe you have some sleep pills that can knock me out. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, I got some really, really, really strong sleep pills. I was like, oh, what are they? You know, generally I like to know what substance I'm ingesting. I mean, not that I'm that cautious of a drug user or anything, but I don't know. I mean, who knows? Spider might use one of his, like, street specialty moves to, like, somersault into me and butt fuck me while I'm unconscious. Wouldn't be the first time I've heard of some sort of street ninja doing shit like that to a junkie that's in a vulnerable position. He didn't tell me what the name of this pill was. He just told me he was going to give me some sort of sleeping pill. So, you know, I was like, you know what, whatever. I feel like shit. Fuck it. I asked Will again, dude, come on, can you please give me that? I didn't even feel that other line. Nuh-uh. I told you what the rules were. And when you're at our place, you're going to have to respect our rules. I said, whose place is this? Is this Eric's or is this yours? And he's like, I don't have to answer shit like that to you, man. I was like, I fucking hate you. I hate you, Will. I hate you, Spider. Hey, don't call me that. I'm not gang recognized anymore. Now I'm just Will. Snake died, or Spider died long ago. So I take this pill. It's one of the more interesting sleep pills I've ever taken in my life. I remember it was like a big triangle. It was like a green triangle or something. Not a trazodone. I don't know what the fuck it was. I remember taking it and I was like, I'm so dope sick. I don't even care if I get date raped. Maybe it'll make me feel better. So I took it. they let me sleep downstairs, you know, in the guest room or whatever. And it was, and you know what? It wasn't even a guest room. It was like, I guess like an office, but they had like one of those inflatable air mattresses that you like press the button and it inflates. Anyway, I take this pill. They give me a beer. I remember drinking a Guinness. And I don't remember much after that. Whatever they had given me knocked me out. It's probably some sort of barbiturate. So anyway, I wake up in the middle of the night, and the bathroom was upstairs. So there's this living room downstairs, there's the kitchen, there's this office that I'm sleeping in an inflatable mattress, and then you have to go upstairs, and that's where their bedrooms are, and then there's a bathroom in the middle. I'm in this like really drunken stupor. It really does feel like a barbiturate, because I've done Quaaludes after this. I've done phenobarbital. It really felt like a barbiturate. Like I was very heavy, almost disassociatively, and I wasn't paying attention. And I was wearing pajamas. That was another weird thing. I was wearing pajamas that I don't remember, that weren't mine. So I was wondering how they got put on me. I don't know, the whole thing weirded me out, right? So I go upstairs. And I have a bad habit of not shutting the bathroom door if I'm going to pee. I don't know why. I just don't. Maybe it's all the years that I've spent locking myself in bathrooms, shooting stuff up. So if I'm like not doing that, I feel like I'm not doing something wrong. So I just like leave the door open just to like, see guys, not injecting anything in here. I'm just pissing like a normal person. So I'm peeing in this like barbiturate-esque coma. And I see something in my peripheral, like something moving. And I keep peeing. I'm like so out of it, so disoriented that I'm not really paying attention. I look again, and I see a guy, not Will, not Eric. I see a heavyset guy with a beard. Kind of looks like Zach Galifianakis or whatever, however you say his name. Butt naked, except for white tube socks. Walking down the hallway. And he's walking from Eric's room into Will's room. He looks at me. It was almost like he had walked, like he walked from one room and then he walked out just so that I could see him. I make eye contact with him and he goes like this. Kind of yawns. And goes back into the other room. I don't even know which room he went into. But like one of Will's or Eric's. Which was even weirder, you know. At that point in my life, I wasn't homophobic anymore. But still, I didn't see naked guys just walking around apartments like that, ever. That may have been the first time I'd ever seen that. Of course, immediately I beat off. I was like, oh, that was fucking super... That was super spontaneous. I feel like coming right now. No, I'm just kidding. I kind of thought about it for a second. I'm in this stupor, so I'm like not really thinking. I was like, oh, that's weird. All right, so there's like gay sex parties or something going on in here. And I go back downstairs and pass out on this inflatable mattress. Whatever they had given me was so strong, it was the kind of thing that I just like passed right back out. But it was the kind of thing where I remembered what I saw. Next morning, I wake up at like noon. By this point, I'm full-blown dope sick, right? Precipitated withdrawal expedites the process anyway. And they're making like French toast or something. Something pretty nice for breakfast, even though it's like late in the afternoon. And I go and I sit at this kitchen table. Now, Will, of course, is the bitch, so he's making the French toast. Eric's sitting there eating it at the kitchen table, and this guy that was naked is wearing like a silk robe, and he's just sitting there eating. Now, I swear, you know what kind of sense of humor I have. I'm dope sick too, so I'm not like as like funny as I normally would be. They go, hey man, can I ask you something? He's like, yeah. I'm Mo, by the way. His name was Mo. Like Chomo. But just Mo. I don't know. Anything with Mo in it, I guess, is no good. So can I ask you something? He's like, shoot. I said, hey man, why the fuck were you naked last night? He's like, I was fucking jacked up on benzodiazepines. I don't remember anything about it. How naked was I? He looks at Eric. He's like, how naked? Eric's like, I don't know. I mean, naked? What do you mean? It's a stupid kind of question. You're naked. And you kept coming in my room, and then you kept coming in Will's room naked. I was like, oh, that's just something that you guys like do for fun? He's like, it's something I do for fun. He's like, why, you have a problem with that? Now, this guy was a lot bigger than me, by the way. Maybe I've like misrepresented him. He looked like Zach Galifianakis, but like kind of muscular. He kind of looked like a Bruno, you know? Kind of looked like the kind that could beat me up. Now I felt like completely vulnerable and rapeable. I mean, I was dope sick. I was still in some sort of barbiturate fucking hangover. And he's just like, do you typically come into houses and start questioning the way that things are operating within the house? These guys said you were cool. They said you were from, they said you were from California, and right off the bat, I don't like California. I think you guys are a bunch of fucking queers. I was like, we may be queers, but we don't do stuff like that. Oh, hey, man, what the fuck is this? Now this guy's talking shit to me? I was like, do you live here? He's like, maybe I do. Maybe I do. Maybe I'm back and forth between these two fucking hunks. I don't believe he said hunks, right? Now I'm just weird. I'm just like, what the fuck is going on here? And I just say straight up, I go, Will, can you give me some heroin? Will looks at me, he's just like, I told you not to say anything. Eric looks at Will, he's like, you told him that we have something? I'm like, dude, I told you that I'm sick. I don't, like, we've been friends for a couple years now. I don't understand why you guys won't just get me well. They all give each other this bad look. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why these guys are being so weird about this. It's like not that big a deal. Eric looks at Will, he's like, go get the sack. Go get the sack. God, Will, with your big fucking mouth. So they show me they have about probably a quarter ounce, right? About 7 grams of this off-white powder. China white, whatever. He's like, you got money? I said, look, my parents will Western Union me any amount of money that we might need. How much of a gram go for? He's like, oh, we don't do it by that. We just do it by bundles. I was like, okay. How much will it take for me to actually feel it? I did a little teeny piece last night. It didn't do anything for me. I woke up sick as a dog today. He's like, oh, I'll give you a decent line. I'll give you a decent line right now. He's like, this is some of the best stuff in all of Manhattan. Right here. This is some of this stuff comes from Afghanistan. This stuff comes from an Afghanistanian submarine dock. I'm just like, oh yeah, that sounds super unbelievable. Okay, yeah. Awesome. I love submarine dock Afghan dope. So this time they give me a sizable line, right? Like definitely enough where I feel it. Not quite. I'm just finishing this. I have about 10 more minutes. So this time they give me a sizable line, right? And I barely feel it. And I'm like, guys, this is some of the best dope in Manhattan. This is the best dope in Manhattan. Will got it from his former gang. These guys don't fuck around. I said, what, the Somersault gang? What, are they training for some sort of gang Olympics or something? He's like, what, you can get better? And I said, yeah, I can. Now, if you remember, before all of this happened, I was dealing with, I'd got sent money from the business lady. So I was, getting a half ounce, 12.5 grams, half piece. In California, it's 25 grams. And the stuff I was getting was probably, like, if we were going to quantify it by value, I'd say the stuff that I got in California was like 20 times stronger than this. And I started explaining it to them. So Will's like, well, how much is a pound? I had never gotten a pound of heroin in my entire life. At that point, I was getting a half piece, which is, like I said, 12.5 grams. I think the most that I'd ever gotten was an ounce. Now, back then, ounces of heroin were going from between $400 to $1,000, depending on how good the quality was. Just the stuff that I could get for $400, we could sell out here for $200 a gram. That's how bad the dope this particular group of people had. Now, these guys weren't like your typical like street hustler guys that had a ton of connections. They're probably the kind of guys that had one connection and wasn't even a real drug dealer. It was probably like a middleman that knew the connection. They were getting taxed. It was getting cut. And the stuff I could get, they could really make a lot of money off of. I got the half piece that I would get back then, I think was, I don't remember which one they wanted to get, but it was like maybe like $500, and it was like really high quality, kind of stuff you could sell for $200 a gram. Back in California, they were going for $60 a gram. So now we start conceptualizing how to get this black tar out to the East Coast, which is ironic because on the East Coast, it's all China white, and on the West Coast, everybody wants China white, but on the East Coast, everybody wants black tar heroin. It's really weird, Some of the best dope that I've done in my life was China white, but I've also done some really good black tar. I just happen to have a good connection on the black tar, and this is years before I started selling it. So we started talking about prices. I don't remember the prices that they had given me, but, or I don't remember the price that I gave them, but I mean, I was taxing them really hard just because they were being so fucking weird to me to begin with. So Will was like, yeah, I can get you I can get you a plane ticket back to California, pick up a half ounce or a full ounce, whatever it was, sneak it back on the plane. Now, back then, we had a system to get drugs and money and whatever else through airport security. You just get those like really tight spandex biker shorts, and you could put stacks of cash in it. You could put drugs. This is before they did the full body scan. So that was the plan. They were going to fly me out there. Now, my best connection, ironically, was in Sacramento, right? The only person that I knew that lived in Sacramento was my Uncle Ron, who's probably like one of the most straight-laced people that you could ever possibly imagine. Goes to church every Sunday. He listens to Frank Sinatra records, lights candles when he eats dinners by himself. Very straight-laced. He knows I'm a heroin addict. He knows I'm a fuck up. He's one of those people that's always very apprehensive about me staying with him. So Will was willing to buy me a ticket, give me the money to go score whatever it was. I think it was a full ounce. And then I was supposed to fly back, and we were going to make all this money. Now, it became apparent to me, I talked to Eric a little bit that night, and basically he told me that Will paid for everything. I probably could have guessed that because this guy was so dorky and annoying. I couldn't imagine like a really like monotone, chill, mellow guy like Eric hanging out with Will in the first place. So it all kind of made sense. Will paid for the apartment that they lived in. He supplied all the drugs. They were doing bunk China White out there. So they were like excited that like a real heroin addict came along that could get quality black tar heroin back in California and was willing. I don't know if I was ballsy or just stupid, maybe a little bit of both. Maybe it was just the size of my hammer cock. Just knowing with the hammer cock that large, there's no way I could get cracked. No, I have a root beer barrel, and that's probably why I'm always going to prison 3 times now, because of the size of my dick. So that was the whole plan. They wanted to fly me back there, and I was going to get paid something decent. I don't remember exactly like how it all worked out, but it's the kind of thing where like all I had to do was like fly with heroin, which is a federal offense that would get me 5 years in prison just for taking an ounce with me on an airplane. I'd get all the free dope I wanted once I was out there because my habit wasn't that big to begin with. And I'd get $1,000 every time I did. And they wanted to have me start doing it once a week. And I was down for it. So I understood Will. He was the trust fund baby that kind of paid for the cool factor. Run into a lot of those. He just wants to be cool. He just wants to buy ounces of black tar heroin and hang out with naked guys, I guess, or whatever. I still didn't figure out what this naked guy, what he had to do with anything. It's not like he was naked all the time. He was just naked that one night when I went up to use the restroom, and he was going from Will's room into Eric's room, which is really weird. Like, I don't know, just not the kind of thing that I saw all the time. So we planned it all out. Will ended getting me a ticket. I called my Uncle Ron, told him I was going to be staying with him for a few days because typically the way my connection worked is I'd go stay up in Sacramento in a hotel for, a while, whatever. And then whenever he was ready, a lot of dealers are like that on their time. Okay, I'm ready to see you. And they'll come by the hotel, do the transaction. That's that. So I had to stay with Uncle Ron so I had some time to kill and I had a safe place to be. I remember I snorted more of that China White that night and it just would not get me well. Maybe it was the naloxone, maybe it was the Suboxone, whatever the case was, it wasn't getting me well. That night, I take another sedative, another sleep pill. Same kind of thing as the night before. I pass out, wake up in the middle of the night, and I see a shadow obscuring my door frame. I thought it was Will just fucking with me because he's annoying like that. I was like, dude, get out of my study, or whatever the room was called. And it was like I was in such a barbiturate stupor that it took me a while for me to like kind of have my eyes focus. And I realized it's the naked dude with the beard standing butt naked in the door frame, middle of the night, while I'm in a barbiturate coma, pretty much down to do anything. And he's just standing there watching me. It was like the kind of thing where like sometimes you can feel yourself being watched. And I kind of just like woke up and I just saw him. He was like leaning against the door frame and he was just looking at me, butt naked. It took me a minute to really like understand what the fuck I was looking at. And I was like, hey man, what the fuck? And we will get into what happens in the rest of this story in the next installment of the 4th of July series. Thank you guys. Trying to get back on track. Palabra.